Hi, this is Roger. We're going to do a video here showing how to do a 515 test running outdoors using a Garmin Connect IQ watch to guide the test. So I'm going to go ahead and start up the 515 app. So we've got the Moxy 515Run App right there. I'll go ahead and start that. We get a welcome screen to start with, and then it goes to the sensor screen. So there it gave me a message that the GPS is ready. And you can see it's already, so it's picking up GPS, it's picking up the heart rate from the heart rate strap I'm wearing, and it's picking up SMO2 from a Moxy sensor that I have on my leg. And it's going to get, the running cadence is going to come from the accelerometer on the watch once we start running. But there's really two things we need to set up here at this point. If we go to the menu, the first is to pair to an MO2 sensor. I'm already paired to a sensor, but to pair to another one, we would just tap on this. And now it's searching, and I'm going to hold the watch right next to the Moxy sensor, and there, now it found Moxy sensor 402, and I'm going to hit check mark and back up, and there we're getting Moxy data from that sensor. The other thing we want to do here is to set up our 10K pace. So this is the pace that you would run a 10K at, or it's a pace that you could sustain for 1 hour. And by setting this pace, that's what's going to base the load steps for the 515 test. So I'm going to go ahead and set mine to about 8 minutes. And then when that's done, I'm going to hit check mark. So now that's set. So now we're ready to go ahead and start the test. Now, if you're in a case like I am here where you have two Moxy sensors, it's a good idea to go ahead and pair to the second one, because pairing to the Moxy sensor forces the time on the sensor to be set the same as on the watch. So I'm going to go ahead and pair to my other Moxy sensor right now. There, now it found sensor number 430. So now both of my sensors are now time synced to the watch. Okay, so now that we've got everything set up, we can go ahead and start the app, and you can start it by just hitting the enter button, just like you're starting a run. And then it brings up this screen, and it's going to tell us how much time is left on the interval down here. So we're going to do 5-minute intervals with 1-minute rests in between. It's going to tell us our current pace on the lower right. And then this speedometer indicator up here is what's going to tell us when we're hitting the right pace for this zone. So this black line needs to be in the green zone when we're running each interval. Okay, here I am going at my first load step. And you can see this first load step's really slow, so I'm okay just walking, and I'm staying within the green range on the indicator. Okay, here I am nearing the end of my first load step, so we can see what the watch is going to do. At the end, it will vibrate and give me some warnings. There I got the vibration, and now it's telling me 1-minute walk slowly. Okay, here we are coming to the end of the rest interval, and now it's going to tell me again what my pace is for the next load interval. Okay, and then when you finish the workout, no matter where you're at, you can just hit the enter button again. That will bring up the resume, save, discard dialog. And I'm going to select save. Okay, now we've completed the 515 assessment where we collect the data. So now we want to download the data so that we can put it into a graph form for doing some assessments. So I'm going to connect to each of the Moxy sensors using the Moxy PC app and download the data. So here I'm connecting to sensor number 430, and I'm going to click on download data. And I'm going to have this data go into a folder on my desktop that I've named Roger 515. I've already downloaded the data from the other sensor, so this is the second sensor. I'm going to call this one right VL underscore 430, and then just click on save, and it will download the data. Okay, now the download is complete. I'm going to clear the data from the sensor, which is always a good idea, just so you don't have any extra data stored on the sensor. So ask if I'm sure I want to clear it. Yes. And then we can look in the folder and we see that I've got data from the left VL sensor number 402 and the right VL sensor number 430. You can see that I have a whole bunch of fit files from number 402, and this is because it makes a separate fit file every time you turn the sensor on and back off. And on that sensor 402, I happen to have been doing a bunch of testing over the last couple of days, and where I was turning the sensor on, recording for a few seconds, and then turning it back off. And that's why there's all those extra fit files. But if you clear the data each time and you only do one test at a time, you should just have the one fit file. In this case, the last fit file is the latest data that was collected. So in both cases, I'll want to use the last fit file from each device. Now we need to get the data from the Garmin watch, and there's two ways we can get the fit file. The first is we can get it through Garmin Connect. So if I go into Garmin Connect and look at my activities, I can find the Hutchinson cycling activity for this date. I can click on that, and then once I'm in the activity here, there's a settings button in the upper right. I can click on that and then click on Export Original. And you can see that it's downloading a zip file to my downloads directory. And if I go into my downloads directory, here's the zip file. I'll open that up, and then here is the fit file from the watch. And I can just copy and paste that into my 515 directory so I know where it's at. And that's one way to get the fit file. The other way is we can just go straight into our Moxy analyzer spreadsheet, and I can just read the fit file directly from the watch if it's plugged in with the USB cable, which it is right now. So if I just say read fit file, my Vivo Active Watch is plugged in, so it shows up as a removable drive. I'll go into the Garmin directory and then the activity folder, and I did this last night, and I ended at 8:51 p.m. and that's the time on this fit file, so I know that this is the one I want. So if I just double click on that, the Moxy analyzer spreadsheet will import the data directly that way. If I wanted to get the data from the fit file that I got through Garmin Connect, I would just go back to the desktop and find my 515 folder, and here is the file that I downloaded from Garmin Connect. So I'll just click on open, and there I get the exact same data doing that either way. And now I can also go ahead and import the Moxy data into this analyzer spreadsheet. So I'll read the fit file, and I'm going to do the left VL first. And again, I said that the last fit file was the one that I wanted there. And this will take just a second to upload. The spreadsheet isn't super fast, so we'll wait for that to upload. Okay, that's done uploading, and so we can see over here, well, we've got data in our Moxy 1 field, which I've already labeled as left VL. Now I'm going to go ahead and read the right VL fit file, and so that's uploading right now, and we'll wait for that. Okay, so now all of the data is uploaded into our spreadsheet. So we can see we have Moxy 1 and Moxy 2 data filled in. We've also got the speed and heart rate data, which came from the watch. Now if you look close on here, you can see that the watch data is irregularly sampled, and this is because it uses the smart GPS updating to keep to minimize the battery use and to keep the fit files small on the watch. And then if you look over at the Moxy data, you can see that it comes in every 2 seconds. And this makes it a little bit difficult for making graphs. So the next step in the Moxy Analyzer spreadsheet is to resample the data. So we're done importing. We've got all the data in here that we want. Then we go on to resample. And there's two parameters on the resampling tab that you may want to mess with. One is the time increment, and the other one is the allowed time gap.
So the time increment just says that it's going to resample the data so that it's going to show up as having data every 1 second. And that's really common for data of this type, is to leave that set to 1 second. You could use 2 seconds as well, which would match the Moxy. And if there is missing data, like the Moxy data only comes in every 2 seconds, it's just going to fill it in with a repeat of the previous data. Then this other parameter is the allowed time gap. And this is going to show a gap in the graph if there is missing data. And we're saying how big of a gap how big of a gap in the data will we allow before we show it as missing on the graphs. And because we're using a watch that uses the smart update, I need to set this fairly large, otherwise we would have lots of gaps in the data. So I set it to 30 seconds. If you were using data, if your watch was recording data every 1 second, you could maybe set this to 3 seconds. And this is just designed to make your graphs look nicer. So I'm going to leave that set to 30 seconds. Then all I need to do in this tab beyond those 2 settings is to click on the resample button. And you can see it's going to do all kinds of things on the screen. You just have to let this run its course while it copies the data over, and it deals with the fact that it's not all at the same sampling rate and that there may be gaps in the data. So we'll let that finish up. And then when that's done, it brings us over to a graph here. I'm going to make the screen a little smaller there so it's easier to see. And so this, we have 4 tabs down here at the bottom. This is our speed and SMO2 tab. So you can see the speed data that was recorded. So this came from the watch. And you can see this was the first load step, then the repeat of that load, then we went on to the second load, and we repeated that. Now you can see the graph goes off the edge to the right. So I need to make the time range a little bigger. There, that's too big, so I'll back up. There, now we've got all of the load steps showing up on the graph when I adjust the time range. We also have heart rate data, so I can go over to the heart rate tab. And it's got the same problem, the range isn't set quite right. And there we have our heart rate data for the various load steps as well.